So I asked former Pro Bowler Lorenzo Alexander during the Red Sea Report, Zoe, would you trade the Pro Bowl for a spot on the all-combine team? It's one in a series of dumb questions I'm going to pose over the course of this edition of Cardinals Underground presented by Pacific Office Automation.
He's calling his shot, Dani.
There's going to be dumb questions.
Was that a serious question?
Two of the three of us.
It's a dumb question, right?
Were at the combine.
Yes.
One of us was not at the combine, so I need to sort of catch up. I'll ask questions accordingly. I'll interview the two of you. Speaking of 2 out of 3, if only one of the 3 of you who went to the combine, counting also for Craig Grillo, which one of you 3 would have made the all-combine team in terms of Cardinals coverage? Darren, Urban, Dani, Sureck, yours truly, Paulie Podcast, over here.
Me.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Good night.
Right.
Do you disagree?
Tooting her own horn, lighting her own lamp.
I mean, Craig was pretty good, too.
Craig was pretty good.
I mean, 11.
I think I did some heavy coverage.
11 interviews. What was, is that the all-time record in terms
No.
of? No?
I think 2 years ago, Craig, I think we did closer to 14 or 16. It was, no offense, Craig, kind of ridiculous. So no, 11 was very manageable.
Okay, but in terms of star power, name recognition, I mean, this year's got to be up there, right?
It was a lot of repeat guests. I mean, a lot of guests as national reporters or draft analysts. So Daniel Jeremiah, Field Yates, Jordan Reed from ESPN, Cynthia Freeland from NFL Network, Dane Brugler, who writes The Beast, which is hundreds of pages with information on every player that will end up getting drafted, which I know is something that we as an editorial staff like to use as a tool in our draft preparation. We had a long list of people. Charles Davis was one of our guests.
Craig gets a lot of bro hugs because he knows them so well now.
So there's The Beast, which is a written document. And then there's sort of like Dani calling her own shot, naming herself. There was Ruben Bain Jr.
She's the only
saying,
one that got waved at by Pat McAfee, so there's
that's
that.
true.
I'm just saying, I did majority of those podcast interviews with Craig. I did some sit-down interviews. I did some self-contained TV segments so you could take a break, Paul. What more do you want from me?
Wow, the receiving end of this one. It was sort of a light week in Cardinals Bird
Yeah,
Watch
I
last
bet for
week.
you.
It was, a little bit. We were out and about, though. The show was out and about. Highly recommend it. So where was I going with this? Oh, there was the monster, self-proclaimed nickname by Ruben Bain Jr., called himself a monster.
I did enjoy that. That
was a
funny.
good one. The Pat McAfee, though, here, you know, I'm just going to bounce around a little bit. Was that truly organic? Or was that because AQ Shipley was up on the set
No,
and he was trying to get
there.
He was not there.
I don't even think AQ was on the show all week. I had asked Pat McAfee. So we're standing there. It's Kyle from our video team, Gennaro from my video team, myself, and we're filming. We stopped at different points throughout the combine of location of where big things, quote unquote, happen. And that was where we did one of our spots, was inside the concourse of Lucas Oil Stadium. And we have the Pat McAfee show, the set going on behind us. And we were kind of a ways away. And so I'm standing there and I'm about to do it, my first take. And I see Kyle in front of me with the camera kind of whip. And that was the first time I really kind of paid attention to the background noise that I wasn't really paying attention to. And I'm like, are they talking to us? And I turn around and Pat McAfee and the 4 other people on set are standing up, waving with both hands at us, yelling, "We're on the news, we're on the news." So we waved back. We did what we needed to do. But what was, I thought, really cool of Pat was the next commercial break, he introduced himself to the 3 of us. And I said, you know, we're the Cardinals, AQ Shipley. And I'd asked, and I don't think AQ was on earlier that week. But, you know, Pat was talking to us about certain spots in Arizona and the weather out here, you know, before he ran to the bathroom, went back on set during commercial break, which was nice of him. So it was very organic.
He's actually out here.
Yes, for USA Baseball. He's doing his show from out here all week.
All I know is
Dani's gonna go find him again, see if he'll wave at the camera.
Yeah. It's good to be Pat McAfee right now. Let's just, I think it might be the only thing we agree on the entirety of this podcast. It's good to be Pat McAfee.
That's fair, yeah.
But it was not good to fail to book AQ Shipley as an analyst, because if this was ever the combine of short arms, this was it, right? With Ruben Bain Jr. and Spencer
is that a backhanded
Fanow.
compliment?
No, I mean, you
feel
need...
very front-handed.
Front-handed compliment.
That'll cost me later. Let me change the subject here real quick. Did Field Yates not have a walk-off mic drop comment? Of all the 1,400 interviews you did, 14, no, it was 1,100? 11. of all the interviews you guys did he not throw in of his own doing? It wasn't even a question of his own volition that he still thinks it's a possibility, albeit remote, but there's a chance, according to Field Yates, that the Cardinals might draft, wait for it, Ty Simpson, number 3 overall?
I only partially find that kind of crazy. I think there's a very good chance the Cardinals do draft the quarterback out of Alabama, but not at 3. I see it very likely.
I was going to put on the oven mitt, but not at 3.
Not at 3.
Okay.
I see that as a highly likely option to trade back into the back half of the first round.
Okay.
But here's the thing.
So open for business.
Yes.
Back end of the first round.
So much of this conversation has got to be upside down.
Yes.
It's truly ever changing because we've got milestones to hit. The first domino that has to fall is what is the decision whether he stays, he's traded, or he's released around quarterback Kyler Murray. And if one of those decisions lands on it being he is not here in Arizona, okay, then that kind of makes sense. If you have Jacoby Brissett under contract, you trade back up for a young quarterback who gets to learn under one of the most experienced, well-respected leaders in the NFL in Brissett. And it's going to be the same conversation as we kind of go into offensive line or edge rusher, or maybe quarterback at 3, although I doubt it, is what are the moves going to be at free agency? Which positions are going to get tackled? Where is the money going to be given? Because that could determine who the Cardinals take at 3. I did think, though, you were actually referencing the end of our conversation with Field, where he does a lot of fantasy football coverage. And so I had asked him about Michael Wilson specifically as maybe the best sleeper to draft early on and then end up getting you as many points as Wilson was on a consistent basis the back half of the season. And Field shared that his wife is expecting, but she has passionately turned down the idea of naming their daughter Michael Wilson Yates. But that's what he does want to name his daughter because he is such a big fan of Michael Wilson and what he did in general and what he did for fantasy owners who had him on their teams.
By the way, random observation on Field Yates, might be the only guy I've ever seen whose hairline is actually proceeding instead of receding.
It was a great hairstyle.
My goodness. So in terms of what might happen at number 3, outside edge rusher or offensive line, I retweeted the whole Kay Adams with Todd McShay, where Todd McShay says, I don't think Jeremiah Love gets out of the top 5. It won't shock me if he's the 3rd pick in the draft. And a Cardinals fan responded to my tweet, quote, but Darren said the Cardinals won't pick him.
Hand me that oven mitt, Paul.
So, Darren, apparently you're now being quoted as the authority on whether the Cardinals would take Jeremiah Love number 3 overall or not.
There was a local radio host who decided to point out that I had said that they weren't going to take him at 3 of my running back story from last week or whatever, and that has clearly upset some portion of the fan base.
So it's more than this. It actually started on the airwaves.
No, it wasn't on the air. And it was on Twitter.
Okay.
And then he made the point that, hey, Darren wrote this.
I have something to add over here.
Yeah,
this
Dani
makes
has
me
her
feel like
hand
one
up.
of the dancing red lobsters from the Amanda Bynes show growing up. I have a hot take.
Yeah, she didn't turn out all that well. But go ahead.
I have a hot take.
Red Lobster, I think of endless shrimp and the power pole of incompetence. Go ahead.
I thought they got off the list.
Here we go. No,
they're out of bankruptcy.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, focus. Here's my hot take. If the Cardinals put money towards a right tackle and a guard in free agency, I think there's a good argument to draft the running back out of Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love, at pick number 3.
Wow, Dani out of the gates with a couple of hot takes here.
I think I convinced myself of that. Thank you for sharing your oven mitt. Yesterday on Cover 2 with Craig.
Really? So is March sweeps month around here? Are we going for the salacious?
Here's the thing. If that's not what's truly addressed, I think as good of a player as he is, you do have to take into consideration what is a need immediately, long-term, trying to build a team for the future and set that foundation. And in that case, offensive line and edge rushers, especially when looking at some of the talent in this draft class, makes a lot of sense, a lot more sense to me than taking Love at 3. However, if you're going to address offensive line and free agency, good players are good players. And if Love can be the type of player that some are projecting him to be, that could be well, your head whipped around, Darren. People are projecting him as the best player in this draft. And when you're looking at the Cardinals and their needs, James Conner is going to be 31 nearing the end of his career, coming off a gnarly ankle injury. And even if he's able to come back fully healthy and be as good as he was, who's going to play with him? Trey Benson has not had a lot of opportunities to show what he can do because he's been hurt the first 2 years in the league. Almost every other running back in that room is a pending free agent. And we also don't even know what this offense is truly going to look like or what they want to accomplish with this new coach and staff. I think there is a very good argument. Again, this is pending attention to the offensive line and free agency, that the conversation would not just be, okay, let's take an edge rusher at 3. I do think taking Jeremiah Love at 3 could have a strong argument.
I don't disagree that you take a good player, but the problem is you don't know. You think you know who the good players are.
You could say that for everyone, though.
Well, but you just said it. Like that, I guess that's my point. I guess for me, here's the running back thing for me. I definitely fall into the camp of you can find guys to run the ball. I understand that not everybody is Derrick Henry. I understand not everybody is Christian McCaffrey. I do understand that Mike LaFleur's offenses have never necessarily gone with one of those high-profile running backs. It's usually running back by committee, more or less, in the offenses that he has run. And I understand where Danny's going if you are able to address, first of all, to find 2 starting offensive linemen in free agency and to get them both, I think is probably a long shot. But let's say you manage to do that. You still have a pass rush situation that was near the bottom of the league in terms of sacks, which still didn't provide beyond Josh Sweat much off the edge, and you have a chance to do it. Now, I don't know how the grades are going to be. If you see Jeremiah Love as grading him on a scale of 100, if you see him as a 94 and you see the top edge rusher at an 87, then yeah, you got to seriously consider it. But I don't know if there's that big of a difference. I know there's people that are saying there's that big of a difference. A lot of them are fans. I don't know. I'm not sure how they know. And this assumption that it would be Adrian Peterson, the sequel, I think that's an assumption.
That's what all this is. I agree, big picture of you don't normally take a running back that high because you can usually find a really strong running back later in the draft, or you can have a committee approach. I'm not saying the Cardinals should draft a running back at 3 or that there would be an argument for a running back at 3. It is very specifically Jeremiah Love.
I get it.
And that's it. And the difference is this is a deep edge class. You can still get a very good edge rusher at the top of round 2 where the Cardinals currently pick.
I don't disagree with that, but here's the issue that I have. Somebody made a similar argument about offensive line. And unless I knew all the grades and everything, you're never going to know exactly. So some of this is whatever, but like the same argument you can make about and I don't know about running back. I mean, I know the other Notre Dame running back probably would be there in the second round, and maybe he is that much lesser of a thing. But like, how do we know that Maui Noah? Yeah, exactly. How do we know that he is not that much better than the next tackle that you're going to be able to get in the second round? I'm not saying you can't get a good player in the second round, but that's with everybody. It's the same argument to me when you're talking about a starter versus a backup. We always want to talk about next man up. There's a reason why the guy who's starting is starting. Well, there's a reason why you're going to pick certain guys in the top 10 and other guys you're going to be able to wait till the second round or the third round. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's a similar argument potentially. We don't know, but it's a similar argument saying, well, why don't the Raiders take Jeremiah Love first? I know, Genti, whatever. But let's say they don't take Love or a tackle first because they have a bad offensive line and just take Ty Simpson in the second round. Well, because Mendoza is that much better. To me, it's the same kind of thought process if you're looking for offensive linemen or pass rushers. I do think there's some depth in pass rush, and maybe you will figure out as you measure these guys that there isn't that big of a drop-off from David Bailey to one of these guys you get in the second round. But my guess is there is. And people want to talk about Adrian Peterson, but this team also decided to not take Will Anderson a couple years ago. thinking, okay, we'll get B.J. Ojolari in the second round. And
correct. Yeah.
So.
But I would just quickly counter of they took an offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be against your argument?
You mean in the first time around?
Yeah, of Will Anderson and Paris Johnson.
Well, my argument is you're there's always a chance you're going to be, you always could be passing on something, and I guess for me it's always going to come back to I am of the positional value person. I'm one of those people. I don't, in today's football, which is drastically different than just 2007 when Adrian Peterson came out. In today's football, it does not make sense to me to take a running back in the top 5. It just doesn't. And there are other people that are going to argue, and I'm sure there's going to be people listening, throwing stuff at the whatever they're listening to on this and saying, God, you're so stupid, Darren. We need playmakers. He's the best playmaker in the draft. And maybe he is. I don't know.
Well, no running back has been taken top 5 in the draft since Saquon Barkley 2018. So
good running back, but also on a second team.
And the Will Anderson Jr. might actually be further evidence of why you don't want to leave an edge rusher on the board at number 3. I saw an NFL Network show the other day where there's a current player on there, and they said draft your dream team, and his 2 edge rushers were Myles Garrett and Will Anderson Jr. So, okay, is David Bailey that guy? Could Reuben Bain Jr. be that guy? Could Arvell Reese? See, I'm not an Arvell Reese guy because he doesn't have a definitive position.
I'm a little, we've been through the wars on that already.
No definitive position, no chance you're going number 3 overall.
Yes, and I am in the camp of you guys, how you feel, because, okay, you draft Jeremiah Love, let's say you're not attacking offensive line in free agency, who's going to block for him, right? Where if you have a strong offensive line, it's a lot easier to find a running back when you've got the holes that are made.
That's what happened to Genty last year with the Raiders.
Again,
you can take him number 6, but he's going nowhere.
My whole point is based around free agency and what kind of happened.
And you're right.
And going from there.
I mean, the Patriots landed Morgan Moses as their starting right tackle, went to the Super Bowl in free agency. The Bears traded for Joe Thuney and another interior offensive lineman. Bears just lost Drew Dahlman, their all-pro center, at age 27, decided to retire out of nowhere. So that hurts if you're the Bears.
And the other thing, too, is, and again, it's not all about necessarily being balanced, but right now, in my opinion, you have a playmaker on offense in Trey McBride. You have a playmaker on offense in Michael Wilson and a possible one in Harrison. Who are your playmakers on defense?
That's a very good point.
Which brings up one of my dumb questions here. I'll get to in a moment.
Yes, another one.
Dumber than how we started?
I just want to say, though, that talking about Jeremiah Love, what was it, a few years ago? I said, let there be
a 4th QB.
So then I was really trying, this year I was like, man, let there be a QB at number 3, but there's not even a second quarterback. So how can you get to 3 if you can't even get to 2? But here's what we're going with now, effective immediately with all this Jeremiah Love train rolling.
I need to cut you off.
Oh, no. What, you got news? You got breaking news?
To everyone that supported me and showed kindness to my family and during my time in Arizona, from the bottom of their heart, I thank you. I wanted nothing more than to be the one that end the 77-year drought for this organization. I am sorry I failed us. I wish this community and my brothers nothing but the best. I am no stranger to adversity. I'm prepared for whatever's next. I trust in God and my work ethic. I truly believe my best ball is in front of me, and I look forward to proving it. Godspeed. And that's from Kyler Murray on Twitter.
Breaking news. That was 1 minute ago.
Wow. Okay. So that's... And are there any further reports?
Yes, the team has told him he's being cut. So that's that. I guess we can change the shift of this whole thing.
Okay.
So I guess my whole
take it away, Paul.
My whole let there be an RB at number 3 that someone will trade up for. That's thoroughly out that window right there.
Let's make it clear. First of all, this is not official yet, but if the player himself says he's moving on to other reports. I'm guessing, so Adam Schefter said it's the first day of the new league year, so that's next Wednesday. So we won't have anything official. But I think this is something we've all been expecting, yes?
Yes.
So, yeah.
So now, so let's talk about the ramifications of the dead money hit. Because it's much more significant than trading Kyler Murray, correct?
Well, apparently there's still the outside chance he could get traded, but I don't see that happening, especially if the quarterback already came out and said, I'm being cut. Why would you
trade when you know he's going to be
Right.
available?
Exactly. So if you know he's going to hit the open market, why would you give up anything of value? So there's the dead money consideration. But guess what? The salary cap just went up over $300 million right now. So there's still ample cap room to rebuild this roster, especially if you're going to focus primarily on the draft. So that's for the bean counters and the caponomics. As for the quarterback position itself, we've seen a variety of different reports about who could be next. We even started this morning with Mike Tannenbaum on ESPN Radio, the former New England GM or the Jets GM, talking about Daniel Jones to the Cardinals. Well, that's not going to happen because the Colts just put a transition tag on Daniel Jones. There's Malik Willis. And those connections potentially out there. Nathaniel Hackett worked for Green Bay last year. Obviously, Mike LaFleur, brother of Matt LaFleur. But Malik Willis has also been rumored or linked to the Dolphins with regularity because of Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator, last couple of years. We've seen multiple reports on Jimmy G, something we speculated on right after Mike LaFleur was hired here at Cardinals Underground because they have a long history together, and Jimmy G is going to be a free agent.
You did. You called that, Paul. You did bring that name up a couple of weeks ago.
So it's Jeremy Fowler saying Jimmy G heading to the Cardinals is a strong option. Cardinals have interest, according to Fowler, and Mike LaFleur is considered very close with Garoppolo. Now, a lot of people look at Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett 1 year apart. Do you really see that much of a distinct difference? Well, one guy's really familiar with LaFleur's system and what he wants to run. So not unlike Drew Stanton coming with Bruce Arians once upon a time, there's a comfort level that comes with a brand new head coach having one of his quarterbacks. We've seen rogue reports about Tyson Bagent and then the whole Ty Simpson connection for the Cardinals, maybe trading back into at number 28 with Houston, according to ESPN, that the Cardinals could consider that. But the QB question is now official. It needs to be answered. And whether it's going to be Jacoby Brissett and a rookie to be, which to me is probably the most likely scenario, I would think, just in terms of probability, being realistic, considering the work Jacoby Brissett did with Drake May 2 years ago. I mean, you couldn't find a better mentor as a veteran quarterback.
Whether it's Brissett, whether it's a name like Jimmy G, I think that is a very likely scenario. And then we go back to the draft of how likely it could be of a possibility of drafting a quarterback high on day 2, maybe trading back into the back end of round 1 if there's a quarterback that the Cardinals like. You know, the question's kind of been answered, but there's still questions on what you do, right? Do you give money to somebody like Malik Willis, who's only played a handful of games, but does have some background and experience with people on this coaching staff and in the front office? Or do you really allocate all of your efforts and money through free agency and the draft to really build upon this team, really strengthening the edge rusher room on defense to get your offense back on the field, strengthening the depth and some of the starters possibly, depending on moves in free agency, and the offensive line? That way, regardless of who the quarterback is of the future, everything else is ideally set in place. And then you're looking at the quarterback in the years to come. You know, I do think it'd be fair and right. Again, while nothing is officially official, we don't know exactly which way it's going to go, right? Whether release or I guess trade is very unlikely, but again, nothing is officially official. You know, like Kyler Murray was still here for 7 years, and you know, yes, it was one playoff game and it was a loss, but he still did some really great things for this organization. And you know, he said in his post, like, he feels like he let people down in this organization, but he still put up some really impressive performances and did some really nice things for this team.
I mean, the amount of jaw-dropping moments.
That Vegas 2-point conversion.
I mean, you know, just the reaction of the sideline on that particular instance. Just guys just amazed. When players are getting off the bench and trying to come to the white stripe mid-play, and they had time to do that because it went more than 20 seconds, and then to shake their head like they're watching Michael Jordan or, you know, some of the best to ever do it. That was one of those moments. And I tell you, it's very curious to see what another coach has in mind for Kyler Murray, if anything. You know, what do they see in Kyler Murray? elite skill set, elite athleticism, at times was an elite quarterback, 2-time Pro Bowler. At times, he was arguably the biggest headache in the league, the biggest game planning conundrum in the league. What do you do? Went into that fateful Thursday night game against the Packers 7-0, and the two leading Sunday night perhaps, right? That one against Aaron Rodgers, and then what came in?
I think it was a Thursday night.
It was Thursday night.
I got it right there. Edit out my retraction. And there they were, Aaron Rodgers and Kyler Murray, the two leading candidates, according to the NBC Open, as for NFL MVP. So, okay, I'm guessing there's going to be quite a bit of interest, especially when he's on the open market.
There's a handful of teams that are in need of a quarterback. I'll be very curious where he lands. Some of those teams that have been reported upon, the New York Jets, the Minnesota Vikings, which is intriguing, of if he goes there as the starter, if he goes there for competition with J.J. McCarthy, the Dolphins, although they'd have to do something with Tua before that decision gets made, and also the Atlanta Falcons, who just hired Kevin Stefanski. So there's a couple of teams that reportedly have interest and definitely have need in a quarterback. I'll just be curious to see where he lands, and to your point, how they use him with his skill set.
This has been an interesting 7 years. And Paul, you and I were around at the beginning, and Cliff got hired, and I know people don't believe this, but I believe that when Cliff first got hired, I do think there was a thought process of, maybe he works with Josh Rosen and they run in a different direction at that point. Now, obviously that changed pretty early, but I don't think it was a given when they hired Cliff Kingsbury that they were definitely going to take Kyler Murray, because if you think about it, and when that all happened, the Cardinals were really the first team to get off a high round quarterback that quickly. That did not happen. And to do that with Josh, to move on to Kyler Murray, was crazy. And then we think of that first game, and the first half of Kyler's first game couldn't have gone much worse. And Cliff is saying later that he thought he was going to get fired at halftime. And
I just bought the house in PV.
And yet they end up coming back crazy and ending up tied in Kyler Murray's first game. It's a tie. There were some amazing moments, but ultimately it was tough to sustain enough. And truth be told, it's been a very bumpy ride since those first 3 years, really. And trying to get to where you want to go. I'm going to say this. I feel like, and I felt this for a while, but now that Kyler's saying goodbye, I think it's a good time for a fresh start for the organization, and I think it's a good time for a fresh start for Kyler Murray. It just makes a lot of sense on a lot of different levels.
I agree, and that was some of the national reports is for the last couple of months, honestly, since the end of last season, that it seemed like things had gotten to a point where it would have been best for both parties to part ways and try and move forward with what fits in their future.
I think of the beginning. It's I think of it in two halves. One, the first 2, 3, 4 years, and then the inability of the Cardinals offense under Cliff and Kyler to adjust to the adjustments, and it proved to bring a short shelf life at that point. And then ultimately, some of the adjustments defense has made in general against Kyler, which will still be a challenge. Just teams hellbent on keeping him in the pocket, doing anything and everything they can with the mush rush, whatever you want to call it, to make sure he doesn't escape. Don't give any running lanes. And then how over the first half of Kyler's career, his downfield passing numbers were top 3 in the NFL. Chunk throws, the frequency with which he hit on chunk throws and explosives. And then the last few years, just the numbers are not there in terms of his ability and frequency to complete balls downfield to the second and third level for whatever reason. I will say this. To me, it's I'm glad to see the Rams are working on a long-term deal with Matthew Stafford, and he says he's going to be back for next season. Because I think there's been an inkling that if Kyler were to hit the open market, what Sean McVay could do to maybe bring Kyler in, and what would that look like?
I don't think that would happen for a second, considering Sean McVay recently hired Cliff Kingsbury to his staff.
Well, there's that. Yeah. That's
also,
it.
I think Kyler's going to want to go someplace where he can rehab his career very quickly. And he's not going to go someplace where he might be sitting on the bench.
Do you think he only considers a potential team where he could earn a starting gig, Minnesota?
Yes.
Or would he think about a Kansas City where he comes in not knowing when Patrick Mahomes is going to return, but you get to work with a 5-star offensive mind?
If my understanding, knowing how competitive Kyler Murray is, if he has the opportunity to go somewhere where he knows he can be the starter, that's where I see him going.
And I bring that up because think of what Sam Darnold said, that the key to Sam Darnold's turnaround was his 1 year with the 49ers. Even though he didn't play, he was there with a very stable franchise, with an elite offensive mind in Kyle Shanahan. Think about Daniel Jones leaving the dysfunction of the Giants at the time, going half a season with the Vikings, but sort of getting around to Kevin O'Connell, and then ending up with the Colts. I wonder if there's a 1 year plan in Kyler's mind. He goes somewhere, fine-tune his game and his processes, mentally and otherwise, and then open himself up for bidding on the open market this time of year, next year.
It's all a possibility. And now that it's, again, unofficially official, there might be more teams that kind of come out of the woodworks of having interest, of now knowing that's a true possibility. I wasn't here necessarily from the beginning, but I was pretty close with the Murray era. I started here in the 2021 season and was here when he got his contract the following offseason in July of 2022. And, you know, I've been here long enough to understand the fan sentiment online that he's a very polarizing player in the Valley, and people feel pretty strongly about him one way or the other. And I think that's a multitude of what people think he is in terms of the type of person or leader they think he is, combined with how he plays on the field. I do find it interesting, the narrative the last couple of weeks, though, was something I don't necessarily agree with, which is fine. People have different thoughts. I don't agree with the narrative I've seen that this organization did not make an effort to help Kyler Murray succeed. My understanding, as someone who came in 2021 and has been in the building and has been here now for multiple staffs that have coached Kyler Murray, is that it seems like they gave him the options and the opportunities. They had Cliff Kingsbury, which in hindsight seems like they hired him to draft Kyler Murray and to have that sort of offense. They traded to bring in his best friend, wide receiver Hollywood Brown. They were fortifying the offensive line. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins and Zach Ertz and these veteran pieces on offense and defense. And then when there was a tide change in the front office and coaching staff, they offered a different approach where it was an offense that really used the run a little bit more and maybe used a little more play action and kind of changed things up. So while I understand and people are allowed to feel the way that they do, that's just my perspective. Is I don't think it's as black and white as this organization failed Kyler Murray, or based on his tweet, he failed the organization. I don't think it's either of those. Sometimes your chapter together just comes to a close and it's time to move on.
I will say this. I mean, it was 7 years together for both sides. Like, this isn't Josh Rosen who got 1 year and, oh, the Cardinals made a bad draft pick, or Josh Rosen got screwed over because he didn't get a chance or whatever, or any of these people. I mean, look at one of the teams that people are connecting with Kyler potentially is the Minnesota Vikings. This isn't J.D. McCarthy getting essentially 1 year because he was hurt his entire rookie year, and then maybe losing out on a chance to have a job if they bring in Kyler or whatever it might be. I mean, this was 7 years. There were some good things. There were some bad things. They never got to where they needed to be. I mean, I don't think this is an ideal spot to be in for the Cardinals. I don't think this is an ideal spot to be in for Kyler. I understand that he might find a place, but I also I'm not sure he necessarily finds a team that says, this is your job no matter what. You know, he might have to beat somebody out, even if it's Minnesota. Like, I don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to get booted to the curb completely. Now, should Kyler Murray outplay him? Yes. but I don't think it's, no matter what anymore. And the issue now is for Kyler going forward is what kind of contract he signed, because if you do take advantage of the amount of money that the Cardinals are paying him as a new team and you get him on the cheap,
like a Russell Wilson
like
did.
a Russell Wilson situation, that also makes it real easy for the other team to make moves if they want. So, again, people are going to be assigning blame. There are going to be people out there, and I've talked about this a million times. Kyler Murray, incredibly, was the most polarizing player I've ever been around, either pro or con. You either had people that were all in on him, and you had a lot of people that were all out on him, and it didn't matter what he did. Either way, they weren't going to change their mind. I just don't see a thing where it's like, let's blame people now. I agree with Dani. It was 7 years, and now you move on. That's an eternity in the NFL.
Look, I mean, from beginning to end, they dumped a quarterback they took 10th overall the year before to draft Kyler Murray #1. They gave him a massive contract extension at the top of the market the instant he was eligible. Now, was a lot of consternation? Was there some regret and maybe some of the manners in which it was constructed? Sure. But remember, they rewarded him the first offseason he was able to be. Then they even brought in a brand new offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing, whose mantra and DNA of his scheme was mostly under center. And then they catered and tailored it to Kyler's needs and wants. And so I'm with you, Dani. I don't see how, not sure what else any other team would have feasibly done to accommodate Kyler Murray's 7-year career.
I think my understanding is the people who might feel that way is I understand you're a big fan of Kyler Murray. All those reasons. How could you not? Of how skilled he is as an athlete and as a quarterback out on the field. #1 overall pick. That is incredibly exciting for a fan of an organization. Again, sometimes you just realize, okay, it's been long enough of us trying to make this work, and it's probably for the best that we move on. This happens. Look, Kirk Cousins is a great example, right? Look at Baker Mayfield, who's done really great things for some of the teams he's been at, and it's time to move on elsewhere. And I think that regardless of how you feel, right, you can take a step back and say, look, you wish him the best of luck, wish him to have success moving forward, and that hopefully the Cardinals don't find themselves in a decade-long quarterback purgatory.
Yeah, it's there's knowns and unknowns, and right now the Cardinals are in an unknown situation when it comes to quarterback. So it is interesting. Anything else via social media? Any other developments? The Schefters, Rappaports of the world, Darren?
No, I mean,
this happens in real time.
It's not going to be official for over a week here. So there won't be anything officially from the team. You won't see anything on their social media channels until it becomes official. But it does make for a fascinating start to free agency in terms of what we might see from Kyler's end. I mean, the question now becomes, and I don't know what the rules are on this, I don't know if this means that he can start conversations with other teams now that he knows, or if he's got to wait till it's official, because that's interesting. To me, it would probably make sense if the Cardinals did let him know he was not going to be here, that maybe they told his agent, you can seek a trade and we can see what happens. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are. I'm curious to know if we're going to have some kind of resolution to where Kyler might end up before we get to Wednesday. But
do you think that maybe they made this announcement now to generate a trade market? Like, let's say one didn't exist because all the other teams were waiting. It was inevitable. The Cardinals were going to cut Kyler Murray. But wait a minute. Maybe instead of just one or two teams, there's 3, 4, 5, 6 teams legitimately interested in Kyler Murray. And instead of trying to outbid you, you're going to trade for him and give the Cardinals a day 3 pick.
Maybe. I was just going to make the point. This feels more like the respect for somebody who was your quarterback for 7 seasons and giving him the heads up and the opportunity to try and get an idea of getting his, everything he needs in line and organized of where he wants his agent to really make a push. I'm seeing online this narrative of people thinking, it's an abomination, it's such a mess, all these things by the organization. But that tells me you're giving him ample time before the new league year even starts that to me is a huge sign of respect. You're not leaving him hanging. You're not doing it last minute. You're giving him the opportunity and allowing other teams that might not have taken this interest maybe super seriously, not knowing what the decision was going to be, that now might show interest for the quarterback. I don't see this as this was a complete mess by the organization. Again,
No.
there's two parties here involved, right? You'd have to have two interested parties. While yes, he is still under contract, you have to have interest on both ends. So I don't see this as a quote unquote mess, especially by a general manager who did not give the contract to Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and I think you're smart. I mean, if you
Me, thank you.
you're the queen is what you are. But I think that I think if you wanted to keep it under wraps, you could have for another week. I think a lot of things are always intentional. I don't. You can say whatever you want about the moves the Cardinals have made. I think intentionality is at the forefront of how they operate. So they're not dumb. They knew if they can't officially do anything until next Wednesday, if they told Kyler Murray and his people today that he was not going to be around, they knew it was going to get out, clearly. So, that's fine. And it, again, for me, I think it's just good to kind of get to the point where, okay, we're able to advance the conversation a little bit more. I mean, I'm with everybody else. You know, it was hard as the season came to an end and there wasn't a whole lot of answers there. Like, you just want to have some conclusion to this and move on.
Yeah, because, again, how did New England, for example, go from 4 wins to 14 wins in a Super Bowl appearance? Well, they nailed the head coach and quarterback. Drake May was a vote away from being the MVP, and Mike Vrabel, right, was among the best in the business last year. So it's now the new biggest question facing the franchise, the quarterback question, and what exactly is next. But I really do wonder if this move was made, A, out of deference to Kyler and knowing the inevitable and where this is all headed and give him a little bit of a head start, reduce some of the noise and speculation in the marketplace, never a bad thing. But then ultimately, maybe someone will step up. If there's a ton of competition for Kyler's services, especially if the price is right, then all of a sudden maybe a team decides, you know what, instead of trying to outbid the Vikings or the Falcons, who knows what Aaron Rodgers is doing? Maybe the Steelers are in the mix. You know, the Jets. I mean, think of how many teams potentially could be in line for Kyler Murray and trying to make him an offer. Well, maybe you come up with a day 3 pick and somehow make a deal with the Cardinals, and that's how it gets a little better for the team. But we'll see. We'll see. It's very interesting. I know in looking at some of the info from the Combine, you guys were there. You know, Ty Simpson generated some buzz there. Obviously, we talked a little bit about that. And then here was a guy I was in on towards the end of the regular season in college football, and then I saw the postseason and I was squarely out. But Carson Beck apparently improved his stock. Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier both raised their stock at the Combine. I don't know if you guys heard anyone talking about those two guys, but I think of Carson Beck in particular. I think of a Tyler Shook for New Orleans, right? Older guy, 50-plus starts in college. You go back to the start of 2 years ago, 2024, and Carson Beck talked about this at the podium in Indianapolis. I was in line to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And then I got injured, and all of a sudden my time was done at Georgia because the next guy was in line, so I ended up going to Miami instead of the NFL draft. And in a lot of ways sort of underwhelmed, even though they went to the national championship game. But if nothing else, I would not be shocked if top of round 3, the Arizona Cardinals select quarterback Carson Beck.
I didn't hear that name, but I guess anything's possible, especially as you start to go down those rounds in the draft.
I mean, again, after Mendoza, there seems to be a lot of speculation on not only what other quarterbacks could get drafted and where, but what their actual abilities will be on this level. You know, the Ty Simpson thing, there's a fear there because he had so few starts in college. Carson Beck certainly checks that box.
Yeah, 50-plus
Quite
starts.
the opposite.
You know, he's the Bo Nix of this year's class. we used to joke about, it was funny, and it's funny how much college basketball has changed. I remember when I was watching college basketball when I was growing up, and North Carolina had a guard named Jeff Lebo, and I swear to God, Jeff Lebo played like 7 years in North Carolina.
Yep.
And now you actually have guys playing
guys,
7 years of college.
But you know how it works with, like, okay, so Anthony Richardson had 14 starts. So it's a very small sample size. So what do the evaluators see? They only see upside because there's nothing else to see. You don't necessarily see as much of the flaws and the drawbacks and the shortcomings because there's just not that much film. You're tantalized by the measurables and the skill set. A Carson Beck, a Tyler Shook, Bo Nix. There's so much film, there's so many games, there's so much more opportunity to be scrutinized and to be minimized as a prospect. Whereas what is the old axiom of coaching? Don't tell me what he can't do. Tell me what he can do. Bring him in, and I'll formulate a system or an offense around what he can do well. So for that, look, there's some things to like about Carson Beck, but I just throw that out there because if there's obviously no quarterback, at least at this point, who's thought to be worthy of number 3 overall, and if you're not able to trade back into the back end of round 1, or Ty Simpson goes 16, because people will overdraft a quarterback, obviously, long track record of that, and then all of a sudden, Ty Simpson isn't available where you thought he might be available, and you thought Jacoby Brissett was your best option among veterans out there, Jimmy Garoppolo included, I could easily see that being the reality when we're done with the draft.
It depends on the moves they make in free agency. If the Cardinals bring in someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, that's the same playing field as Jacoby Brissett, just has more experience
Agreed.
with the head coach. In which case, drafting a quarterback, either the back end of round 1 or high on day 2, makes sense. You're trying to find a quarterback for the future while you have an experienced veteran in the room to get them poised for success. The Cardinals decide to give a lot of money to a young free agent, someone like Malik Willis possibly. Doesn't make as much sense to move back into the back of the first round and get a quarterback or day 2 because you're showing and you're telling the world, we believe this young quarterback is our future. You would still keep Jacoby Brissett, right? He's under contract. You keep him around. But it depends on what they do in free agency and what type of quarterback they bring in for what really makes sense on how high you draft a quarterback this year.
I think, too, and the quarterback is obviously the sexiest position, and we're going to talk a lot about it, and until things get figured out, that's just how it is, and that's how it should be. It's the NFL. But you have a first-year head coach, and what happens with a first-year head coach? You have a lot of roster change. You just always do. Now, in this case, it happened to be with the quarterback, and when Jonathan Gannon showed up, Kyler Murray was already entrenched, and they weren't going to make a move, but we saw, a new quarterback come in with Steve Wilkes. We saw a new quarterback come in with Cliff Kingsbury. We saw a new quarterback come in with Bruce Arians. We didn't see a new quarterback come in with Ken Wisenhunt, although he did end up making a change from who he originally planned on using. Sorry, Matt Leinart. So, this is not crazy. It just happens that we just went through a cycle with a new coach that didn't change the quarterback, but that's actually more that's the outlier rather than the norm.
Which, if we do have a random side note on the quarterback on Kyler Murray, as I'm sitting here, we were prepared, right, for all the situations to come when the new league year started, but it's very clear based on the start of this podcast, we were not prepared for this news to break mid-podcast. But as I think about...
This is great content, Dani.
I'm not denying that. Two things can be true at once, Darren.
I don't think we're going to get to getting cultured today.
I know,
either.
it's just a bummer. Maybe I can speed through it. But as I'm thinking through, right, some favorite Kyler Murray stories, I think off the field, I think of one that has to do with my family. My nephew, when he was 2 at the time, as he was learning to talk and say everybody's name in my family, I kid you not, we would go through everybody's name and he would get to Dani and he would not even attempt it, would not even try. And it became a joke in my family of, oh, he's not going to say Dani, maybe he'll say Kyler Murray. And he would say Kyler Murray. He literally said Kyler Murray before he ever said my name when he was learning to speak. And so as he's growing up, he doesn't really understand the difference of a Cardinal or the Bird Gang or Kyler Murray. He sees the logo and kind of thinks it's all the same. And I remember talking to my sister before his picture day in preschool when he was 2 and saying, what do you want to wear? And he said, my Kyler Murray jersey, which I had purchased him. I mean, maybe not a full sentence, right? But he said Kyler jersey. And I tweeted it because it was adorable. I didn't tag Kyler. I didn't tell him about it. Kyler ended up seeing the tweet and made an effort to not only say something online, but follow through in person on signing a jersey for my nephew, who is the biggest Kyler Murray fan. And I will always be appreciative of the effort he made with that.
That's cool. That's really cool. I remember when Kyler showed up and I asked him, you going to be playing some golf with Pat P and Larry Fitzgerald? You know, those guys are pretty good sticks. And he said, no, I don't play golf. Well, you don't play golf? He said, no. So I always thought it would mess up my baseball swing. Oh, yeah, you were selected 10th overall in the baseball draft as well. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
It is funny that we all that talk when he first got in the league and was he going to go play baseball, even up until he got the contract extension. Oh, he might go play baseball. Yeah. I'm going to go play baseball.
Yeah. And then when he had his charity softball event, or maybe the first one was Fitz's charity softball event, and then just to see his swing and him go yard, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, there it is. But to me, it's just some of the breathtaking athleticism to see the frustration on the other sideline, to see defensive linemen shaking their head, just left grabbing at air as Kyler, he gone, right? Just especially early in his career before the knee injury, just the ability to make defenders look stupid, the fear that he put into them. And honestly, and again, I come back to this, his 2 Pro Bowl seasons, he was top 3 in the NFL in downfield passing. And it was that combination of being arguably the fastest guy on the field with the ability to hit a defense deep. And then that escaped him later on in his Cardinals career. You just didn't have the same explosive passing attack out of his right arm that you did earlier.
There's always going to be things, not just with Murray, but with all players, when it comes to releasing a player, trading them, there's always going to be things that are going on behind the scenes that people are not going to know about. Not even us. So when you see online of, oh, it seems like A, B, and C, it seems like the organization failed him by doing 1, 2, and 3, the reality is you're never going to know all the ins and outs, all the conversations that are going on behind closed doors. This is not a situation that a team and an organization comes to lightly. It's not something they wake up and decide, you know what, this is it. This is something that for both sides, it's going to happen over time with lots of little decisions that become big decisions with a big impact.
And for all that and more, it's not that shocking. Yes, we just got the news within this hour. Literally during this edition of Cardinals.
So nice of them so nice of them to tweet during the podcast as opposed to right when we wrap.
But guess what? Kyler did not start the final 12 games of last season. So in a lot of ways, for those of us who follow the team on a daily basis, for fans in Arizona and beyond who are diehards, you've already gotten 2/3 of a season minus K1. That decision had already been made in a lot of ways. So it's officially official, as close as we can get right now until it actually goes through the league transactions. But both sides have acknowledged that's the way they're going forward. And so, okay. But again, I think, most of us expected this to happen versus any other scenario. Despite the fact all options were on the table, I think most of us expected this eventual outcome.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's probably fair to say. Yeah. And that's what everybody was talking about at the Combine, too. So, yeah.
All right. You guys got room for a couple other dumb questions for me to throw out, or should we just leave it here?
I feel bad that I cut you off in the middle of all that. But
where were we?
I have no idea where I was.
I think we're still in the middle of the running back situation.
Here's what, we were talking running back.
Oh, let there be an RB at 3.
Yeah, let there be an RB at number 3. That's my new mantra.
Which I feel good about that happening.
Okay, all right. So if you can leverage that into a trade, because guess what? By the way, here's my next point on that. The reason I was going that direction is, according to most sports books, the Titans at number 4 are currently the betting favorites to take Jeremiah Love. Hello? If you want Jeremiah Love, guess what? Tennessee's going to take him. You better get in front of Tennessee, who's at number 3.
Possible. I think the one thing that Monty Ossenfort has made very clear, whether it's this Kyler situation where he would like to deal him or move around in the draft is he's not going to shut down any possibilities. And I do think in a perfect world, if you could move down a few spots, you probably benefit greatly if you're the Cardinals. Now, whether that's somebody would really want to come up for Jeremiah Love, I think that's one of those wishing and hoping things,
So when I was watching the combine, I think I had the same reaction a lot of people did. Like, how did Ohio State not win the national championship? I mean, the number of five-star
don't get Kyle Daroni started, Paul.
blue chippers that were out there. So this is my last point, and I'm going to make this, and I'm going to put this in the form of a question. If you had to do the draft all over again, the draft that included Fred Warner, would you take Fred Warner number 3 overall? If you had to do the draft all over again that included Hall of Famer Luke Kuechly, would you take Luke Kuechly number 3 overall?
Sonny
Luke Kuechly
Styles
is in the Hall of Fame.
So Sonny Styles
And
to
Luke
the
Kuechly
Arizona
was
Cardinals.
taken number 9. So, to me, Dani,
Put on that mitt.
if you don't think,
Oh,
Hot take.
I don't think it's that hot. It's lukewarm. I'm not sure yet. I'm reaching
Luke
into the
Kuechly
oven. I'm not-
warm?
If
Good one,
all
Darren.
of a sudden Spencer Fano is a question mark because he has the short arms, and you're not exactly sure about Francis Maui Noah, do you take a right tackle only at number 3? And then all of a sudden you're looking at the talent at edge, and let's say David Bailey goes number 2. You have Arvell Reese, who's maybe a tweener, or you don't know what position. And then you have Reuben Bain Jr. with the short arms, and maybe he really is a tweener, interior D-line edge. So if you're faced with that situation, the quarterback isn't there, you're not going running back. All of a sudden, what about Sonny Styles? When I'm looking up there, and they're comparing Sonny Styles' measurables to Calvin Johnson, and they have the split screen side by side, 6'5", same measurables, insane speed, and Sonny Styles is a baller.
I don't disagree with your feelings, but you are brave to broadcast to this fan base the idea of taking an off-ball linebacker with your first-round pick.
This isn't, that's doing him a disservice. This is
Okay.
a badass middle linebacker who's
Sure.
a sideline to sideline,
Yes.
seek and destroy,
Yes.
absolute captain of the defense. I mean, think of Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman back in the day for the 49ers. And now if all of a sudden you take Sonny Styles, work with me here. Sonny Styles is your middle linebacker. And all of a sudden, Mack Wilson Sr. goes back to will linebacker, but you also have the ability to put Mack Wilson Sr. off the edge, something he does really well, get after the quarterback, and all of a sudden, that's your inside duo. Dani, how many games did the Arizona Cardinals win after Mack Wilson Sr. got hurt?
0.
That position, I think, is underrated, undervalued.
Sure.
If you get a dude, a Hall of Famer at that position, that can transform your defense.
Absolutely. Let's not say before being drafted Sonny Styles is a Hall of Famer.
I'm just saying if
Of
indeed
course.
you're like, oh
Of
my
course.
God,
See, look, that's the blessing and the curse of where the Cardinals are in terms of being at number 3 and where their needs are offensively and defensively. You could essentially make an argument for any good player in this draft.
he ran
Minus maybe tight end or wide receiver in the first round.
he ran 4.46. He ran faster than Ohio State receiver Carnell Tate. He ran faster than CeeDee Lamb. He had a vertical of 43.5. So those are just the measurables. But then all the reviews of his drills, he made everything look like insanely easy compared to anyone else. It was sort of like the year Joe Thomas came out at tackle. Full disclosure, Paulie Pencilneck has never played offensive line, but all you had to do was watch the combine drills, and Joe Thomas was elite, and everyone else was just a guy.
I do want to be careful about getting in love with the combine studs.
Agreed.
Do you want to culture us?
Sure. It feels like it's not going to be super exciting now based on this news, but we can do it.
That's Darren saying,
do
put
it.
away the oven mitt and let's get cultured.
Let's do it real quick.
Dani, we'll segue to you.
Getting cultured with Dani. It is not just directed at Paul.
Am I the default uncultured Philistine around here?
Yes.
You got me very excited now.
I am on social media and consume more pop culture than both of you combined.
I think I'm being unfairly profiled, but go ahead.
Let's go. I would have loved to have seen that Kyler tweet at the beginning of the segment and just surprised both of you with that tweet for getting cultured.
Yeah.
Alas.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We're going to circle back to the last time we did this segment 2 or so weeks ago about the Kevin Burner alleged burner accounts. I'm sorry, Kevin Durant. I'm combining all my words.
Kevin Burner.
Kevin Burner. The Kevin Durant alleged burner accounts.
Yes.
There we go. Now I'm speaking. So, since then, he has fired his full-time editorial team at his media company. And do we think that's a coincidence, yes or no?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay, that's it. That's the first one. Great. The next bullet point is we missed the next royal wedding. We missed a secret wedding. Zendaya and Tom Holland
I did see that, yeah.
are reportedly married. They're co-stars from Spider-Man, Paul. Do you not know who I'm talking about? The actors?
I think a Disney Channel.
She was on a Disney Channel show.
Whatever show that was, yeah.
Yes, and he was Spider-Man. They were co-stars in the recent, evolution of the Spider-Man movies. So they've been dating for a while. They've been engaged and reportedly had a secret wedding. Her longtime stylist was the one who broke the news at a red carpet event this weekend.
Let me guess. It was on an island, a tropical island somewhere.
I don't have that information, but I will let you know because I know that you're curious.
Oh, we need to know more.
And I am a woman of the people, so it is my civic duty to share that on March 19th, mark it on your calendars.
St. Patrick's Day.
And that's the 17th.
Dang it.
March 19th, Dairy Queen is giving out free vanilla soft serve cones to every customer to celebrate the start of spring. What would you guys do without me? We should go together. We should carpool.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay. Hit the drive-through.
And then last on the list is Kyler Murray tweeting that his time in Arizona is done. So you both have been cultured. You're welcome.
Yeah, that is a walk-off. That really is. That's okay. All right. Well, in some ways, the off-season officially starts now. Does it not? Sort of been waiting for official confirmation.
The first domino to fall.
Right.
Although it is going to be interesting with a week between now and the officialness of it. Although Monday, tampering will start, and we'll start hearing some names.
Refresh our memory, Darren. Do all the insider reports start coming out on Monday? These two have agreed. No, this team and this player have agreed to a deal.
That'll be Monday afternoon.
Now, does it make jump the process on Sunday night?
They can't. They better not. They're going to get in trouble.
Okay, there are ramifications, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So in this need to be first all the time.
Now, that doesn't mean news isn't going to come.
Okay.
Like, the Cardinals can still re-sign some of their own guys. They can still release some of their own guys. And further looking at this, it is possible that the reason the Cardinals, and it was reported that they can't cut him until next Wednesday, it is possible that the reason for that is that they're going to put a post-June 1 designation on Kyler
to split it over 2 years.
Split a little bit. I don't think it's I don't think it's 50-50, but you can split some of it. Otherwise, they could just have released him today. So I think there's still guys that could be released between now and the opening of the league year Wednesday. So there still could be news this week.
And I'm sure once we kind of have time to collect our thoughts fully, we'll have more on this next week. But again, I think immediate thoughts is respect for what he was putting out there on the field, the type of competitor he is, some of the moments he gave this fan base and the organization. You knew if you were down and Kyler Murray had the ball in his hands with 2 minutes to play, you were not out of the game. So respect for the type of competitor he is and what he did his best to give this organization.
Yeah, you never knew. You never knew what he was capable of. I mean, it was, if sports is entertainment, he was really entertaining in so many different ways, so many different memorable moments. There's no question about it. You think anyone takes jersey number 1 next season?
Yes.
And that'll do it for this edition of Cardinals Underground, brought to you by Pacific Office Automation.